In this video, we're going to look at 4 Sonkeigo words. But first off, we have to know what is Sonkeigo. To begin, we first must know what Keigo is in general. Keigo, often translated as honorifics or respect language, is used when certain social situations encourage elevation of one's addressee or debasement of oneself. The 3 types of Keigo most often used are Kenjogo, Teinego, and what we'll cover in this video, Sonkeigo. And those are the words we're going to take a look at in this video. So it literally means Sonkei, respect, go, language, respect language. And it's used when you want to show respect to either the person that you are speaking to or the person that you're speaking about. And in order to demonstrate this through the language, Sonkeigo utilizes words that are completely different from the normal everyday words you use in Japanese. So it's important to note, though, that you're never going to use these words to refer to yourself, because that's what Teinego and Kenjogo do. Sonkeigo is only for speaking to or about others, and about others' actions. So let's start by looking at a few Sonkeigo words, some of which you may already know. So the first word we're going to look at, this is Sonkeigo. So in this video, we're going to learn a few words that are classified as Sonkeigo. Sonkeigo literally means Sonkei, respect, go, language. And it's used when a speaker wishes to show respect to the person that they are speaking to or the person that they are speaking about. And in order to demonstrate this through the language, Sonkeigo utilizes some basic vocabulary words that are completely different from the normal words that you use speaking every day. It's important to note, though, that you are never going to use Sonkeigo to refer to yourself or to refer what you're doing. Teinego and Kenjogo can take care of that. Sonkeigo is only for speaking about what other people do. So with that being said, let's take a look at a few Sonkeigo words. The first word we're going to look at is meshiagaru. And this one can replace the everyday words like taberu and nomu. You can almost think of it as like a to consume. But before we're going to put this in a sentence, we should maybe try to think about the type of people we could be talking about whenever we decide to use Sonkeigo. Although it shows respect, you have to be careful not to overdo it or to use it in the wrong situation, because then it could be construed as sarcastic or rude. If we're talking about a friend or sibling, this wouldn't be the word to use, but if we're talking about the company president or your teacher, this is much more appropriate than saying taberu or nomu. So let's use a company president as our example in the first sentence. So we have, 社長は毎週金曜日に皆さんと一緒に召し上がります. So try to understand this sentence just how it is right now. But if you're having some trouble with it, take out the 召し上がります and replace it with 食べます. If you do that, it should be pretty clear that what this sentence is saying is every week on Friday, the company president eats with everybody. It's important to note that the only difference between which verb you're going to use, meshiagaru or taberu, is the level of respect you want to show to the company president. Let's move on to a second sentence. 毎朝社長は紅茶を召し上がります. Again, if you're having trouble with this run, take out 召し上がります and replace it with 飲みます. This sentence then pretty clearly means every morning the company president drinks black tea. From these examples, it should be pretty easy to see that these Sonkeigo words are merely replacing other words in order to demonstrate greater respect. So with that in mind, let's go over a few more. The next one is pretty common. This is goran ni naru. This verb covers the meaning of both this miru, meaning to look, and this miru, meaning to watch. And it also can have the sense of shite miru, which of course means to try. With that in mind, let's take a look at a few examples. 首相は映画をご覧になりますか? How does that sentence strike you? If you're having trouble, replace ご覧になりますか with 見ますか? This sentence then means, will the prime minister watch the movie? ご覧になりますか will he watch? This next sentence is also pretty similar. お母様は毛布を干してご覧になりましたが、まだ濡れています. Okay, this one might be a little more difficult at first, but try taking out the ご覧になりましたが with 見ましたが, and then it becomes a lot more familiar. The sentence is going to mean, your mother tried air drying the blanket, but it's still wet. And remember, we're going to use this because we're talking about somebody's mother. That's somebody we'd want to show respect to. And the difference, again, is that by using that Sonkeigo word, as opposed to the everyday one, we're showing a lot more explicit respect to the mother of whomever it is we're speaking to, and that's very important. By the way, another really common usage of this word that you'll hear a lot in Japan is goran kudasai, which simply means mite kudasai. It's also interesting for being the one of the few occurrences of non-verbs being used with kudasai, because of course goran is a noun. We can see that from the ninaru. And that, of course, also means that it has the capacity to be a little confusing for people who are a little too stuck up on the rules or who think kind of rigidly about this. So, because of that, memorizing this usage, goran kudasai, specifically, it might be a good idea. Okay, our next word we're going to cover is a word you're almost certainly going to run into while in Japan or in any formal situation where Japanese is being spoken. This word is gozonji. And it should be noted that this word is a noun, but what it replaces is shiru, the verb meaning to know, of course. So let's take a look at this first sentence here. 大統領の演説はいつ始まるかご存知ですか? I think you're getting the hang of it by now, but if this sentence is confusing, you can replace ご存知ですか with 知っていますか? And then you should have no problem understanding it. This means, do you know when the president's address will begin? So that's a pretty common and simple one, not too much there. Let's look at one last word for this video. Like the others, it's not only relatively common, but also pretty useful. Oide ni naru. Oide ni naru can replace iku, kuru, or iru. And our examples here are not going to cover all three meanings, but they're not too difficult to figure out generally from the context. Remember, a lot of stuff in Japanese is pretty dependent on context, so this word is one of those words, because it can have these kind of three meanings that don't really seem to have the same sense to them, but they, it's really not that hard to figure out. So we have first off, 先週、土井先生は私の家においでになりました. Of the three verbs here, 行く、来る、いる, which one sounds like it would make the most sense in this sentence? To be honest, you could make a case for any of the three. And if you take any of these, you're going to understand that Doi sensei, Dr. Doi, was at the speaker's house last week. Although kuru is probably the best answer, he came to my house last week, might make the most sense. This example illustrates that even when the precise meaning is ambiguous, it's not impossible to still get enough information. In any case, he was at the speaker's house. For the sake of understanding, let's take a look at one more example, this time a little bit clearer. おじいさんは市役所においでになりました. So, unless we're at the 市役所, the city hall ourselves, we should probably interpret おいでになりました in this sentence as meaning 行く、行きました. Thus, the sentence would mean your grandfather went to city hall. In this video, we've learned about Keigo and specifically discussed the usage and 4 vocabulary terms typical of one of its subtypes, Sonkeigo. We covered a few common Sonkeigo words, 召し上がる、ご覧になる、ご存知, and おいでになる, but this is by no means the extent of the system. In our next video, we'll take a look at a special class of some very common Sonkeigo verbs that have irregular conjugations. So, 今度もよろしくお願いいたします.